last meeting held on August 1st, 2012. Staff provided you with the draft of those minutes, and unless there are additions, corrections, or deletions to those minutes, I would entertain a motion that they be approved.
So moved.
Second. It's been moved and seconded that the minutes be approved as presented. Those in favor of such indicate so by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, the minutes stand approved. Item number 3 on our agenda, we're getting into some of these end of year, beginning of the year housekeeping kind of chores. And I guess, Jared, Marcus, we'll have to have an annual meeting of the corporation, maybe at our next meeting.
Yes, sir. The bylaws require the annual meeting to be conducted in October or as soon thereafter as practical, and that's where we start getting again into y'all's dual existence as both political subdivision and nonprofit corporations. So we'll pick that up next month.
But looking forward into 2013 is what item number 3 is intended to do from a budget standpoint. And we are kind of an odd duck creature, if you will. Our ability to exist is buried in the transportation code, I think, and we're kind of half nonprofit, half public entity. What we're looking at from a budget standpoint today is kind of on the public side of our dual existence here. And the LGC, the budget for the local government corporation, the resources for us to expend as we carry out our business, those dollars are actually tucked away into the city's budget and go down the line in putting together 2013 budget for the city. Staff has done such a preliminary budget for the local government corporation for 2012-13. I believe those figures were presented to us in the package as well, right, Jared?
And Mr. Freeman is here to help walk us through that and answer any questions you might have.
Okay. Walk us through. Thank you, Gary. We were just taking a stab at it last year, so we budgeted $71,400. Most of that, the professional, was for legal fees. Looking at where we're at right now, we're a little bit over in the legal fees. We're looking at $96,000 there. So we'll have to transfer about $107,000 in total from the general fund. We also have officers and directors insurance for you. That's $1,600. We do budget $7,000 so each board member can travel and take some training, and then the meals and local for our meetings. For next year, we're seeing the legal expense. We're thinking it will go down to in the $70,000 range. Most of the other expenses about the same, and we'll need about $81,000 from the general fund. It's a pretty simple budget. Be happy to answer any questions. It does balance.
It balances, and the roll-up for what we expect to end the current year was accounted for and included in the budget presented to the City Commission, and those balances therein.
Dean, have we spent any money in this fiscal year for that travel?
No. But it's still available, so I showed it in there.
Questions from the board regarding the proposed 2013 budget as proposed? If there are no questions, I'd entertain a motion that we approve or accept, approve, I suppose, the budget.
Approve the budget.
Second? Second. Okay, we have a motion and a second that the budget for 2012-13 be approved as presented. Are there any questions? Hearing none, those in favor of the motion indicate so by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed? Motion carries, and our 2012-2013 budget is approved. Item number 4 on the agenda is our standing item regarding the update of the work that we are a party to here at the Local Government Corporation. Let me get into that, and then we have a guest that Jared would like to introduce for us to visit with him about his role in this process as we move forward. But in order to get into that, let me just say we are at a critical, I think, in my opinion, stage in terms of the work that Wallace Jolly is doing in the finalization and the financing for the hotel and the parking garage. a critical period of time. There have been a number of conversations between Jared and Joesh, and between me and Joe, and also between our project advisory committee, right? And Joe, and I think it's fair to characterize those discussions by saying that we are convinced that Joe and Wallace Bajali are being very diligent and are really focused on the finalization and financing for the project. We're satisfied, certainly satisfied with their level of effort, and look forward to a successful conclusion of that process. There's nothing that has led us to believe that the timing that we have talked about between ourselves and with the City Commission and with the community is at risk at this point in time of changing. So that's where we are. We're just in the midst of a very critical 3-month period in my mind in terms of that timeline, leading toward the opening of the hotel hopefully by the middle part of 2015. In terms of the MPEV lease and development agreement, of course there is the work that has to be done to develop a document similar to the hotel lease and development agreement for the multi-purpose event venue. And that process has begun to the point of the attorneys between Paul Sander, our attorney, the Local Government Corporations Council, and Mark Arnold, the Council for Wallace and Jolly. They're trading versions at this point in time. It's getting close to the time that the Project Advisory Committee will become engaged in meaningful discussions in terms of the wrapping up of that document. So that's where that is in terms of the MPEV lease and development agreement moving forward. The Center City agreement for their $400,000 contribution, I anticipate will come about being formalized from Center City's standpoint at their meeting this month, which is September the 20th. They got busy with block party in August, so that didn't happen in August. In fact, I know there's not an issue there. It's simply a matter of getting it on the agenda and getting it done. I will be available if they want me to be there to talk about that agreement, which has been drafted and has been in the hands of their legal counsel for several weeks. Anything else, Jared, Melissa, board members, before we invite you into the hearing?
Thank you, Mr. Picker. I'd like to introduce to you today Mr. Jerry Danforth. Jerry is our facilities manager here at the city. Been with us several years. Prior to that, Jerry has an extensive background in commercial and industrial construction. Jerry and his tenure facilities department, you've now been the manager not quite a year.
Right.
Assistant manager before that. Prior to that, been at our airport doing the facilities work out there and made substantial improvements in all cases since we've had Jerry. We've asked Jerry to step into this project on behalf of the public side right now to do several things that I think are very key. We've talked briefly about the process that will be needed if we move utilities around. Not only as we move them, but as we replace, repair old stuff, as we upsize new stuff, as we prepare not only for these 3 particular events, but related projects and hopefully for future growth. Jerry's leading and coordinating not only the city efforts on that, but also those efforts of the private utilities. When we get farther down the line and we see construction beginning, I would suggest or offer Jerry's services to do very similar to what the city did with the gentleman at the time, Gino Wilson, that's the old new center for the Performing Arts construction. Similar deal. Third party, private, was constructing that facility with the eventual intent of it coming back for the public's operation and maintenance. Mr. Wilson was Jerry's predecessor. He provided that oversight on that project. And again, I would suggest to offer Jerry to do the same if he was doing. With that, Jerry...
Dean's not going to try to charge any of his time against our budget.
Well, you got to watch those detail sheets when Dean's involved. With that, and with the board's permission, I'd like to ask Jerry to step up, speak to you just a little bit, kind of outline to you what we envision happening on the ditch project, and then, of course, the timing of that will be predicated upon what's happening with Wallace Jolly's side of the deal and some of their stuff. We still have one thing left to do physically on the lots, and that doesn't include skinning the parking lot over here. But we want that to be the last thing that's done so that we have use of it. But, Jerry, if you would.
Well, it's a pleasure meeting all of you. Jared informed me that I needed to kind of give you guys an update of where we're currently standing. Under Jared's direction, we've been moving forward rather aggressively. Our biggest issue has been pulling all the private utilities in with all of the city utilities that need to be relocated for this project. We've given quite a bit of consideration as far as effect on public access to public buildings and public facilities during this project. So we broke it down into several sections. The first section that we're looking at modifying or updating would be the work that would need to be done on Buchanan. This would come from 7th Street down to and tying in front of the Civic Center and crossing over there. Currently, all the main sewer lines downtown all drain to the north from 10th Street. So that's been the biggest issue that we've had to take into consideration. We can do a lot with engineering, but overcoming gravity is always an issue. So we've been working on that rather diligently. We ran into an issue with relocating some of the utility lines. When we start the project, you'll see that our plans are to go from 8th Street to 5th Street down Pierce and take out 2 lanes when we open up that common utility trench. Our plans are is to construct the contract in such a manner that we get a contractor large enough to be able to meet the time frames that's going to be necessary so that we can mediate the public impact. As we get to 8th Street, you'll notice that we will change at 8th Street direction and switch from at 8th Street to the alley on 8th Street and then run north to 10th Street where the proposed new totem is. We needed to upgrade all of the city utilities through that area. So those are all being upgraded at that time when we do this common trench. One of the great benefits that we've realized and has been communicated to us from the private utilities, Amarillo's plan for utilizing this common trench format has been extremely beneficial for them and for us, and all parties are going to realize substantial cost savings by doing it as a common trench. The other big benefit that we're realizing as a city is we control where all of those utilities sit. So in the future, we won't have the issues of trying to pothole or explore to find out where lines are. All of these will be in place and noted and on the city plans for future use. We've taken into consideration where Wallace Jolly has planned on putting their buildings. Some of their preliminary footprints has given us enough information that we know where the terminations need to be for the utilities. So our plan is to get this done before they put a shovel into the ground for the hotel. That way we don't impact the public with construction on a hotel and relocating utilities simultaneously. We're moving along at a pretty good pace. I believe that by the end of this month we should have some solid numbers to present to Jared so that he's aware of what the costs are going to be for this project. As some of you have probably noticed, we've already started some of the trenching from 10th Street to 8th Street through the alleyway. Those are new sewer, water, electric, Suddenlink, Happy State Bank's fiber optics are also running through that area. But we hope to have that completed here within the next 2 months so that we can make it as seamless as possible to everybody that's involved.
If I might add to that, just a couple of quick things. As all of y'all are well aware, the oldest utilities in Amarillo are downtown today. And downtown is not the shape that it once was physically. Uses are not the same. City Hall is sitting on top of what was the at one point. The main runs that we're talking about making accomplish many things. Certainly they support these projects. They allow us to replace some stuff that we're going to have to be replacing anyway. For the 2 city commissioners, this is support for the eventual remodeling of that Atlas building and the ultimate occupancy of that. But as much as anything, I hope and I expect using the common trench sets a new standard for how we can work in the commercial and industrial areas of Amarillo. Today, one side now is occupied with X and one's got Z, and you've got to try to go through the middle and find a place to put Y. And it's very difficult. In fact, we used to have places that you now jut out into the street to make something happen. Or in the case of City Hall, there's a sewer line running diagonally at a 45-degree angle across this parking lot. We'll put in, I'm sure, to make an accommodation for a certain need at some point in many decades.
Yeah, how to pay for it.
And I'm sure that, you know, A squared plus B squared equals C squared, there was a cost savings of a few linear feet to do that. Nonetheless, this common trench is going to save all of us money. Jerry and his crew, the city crews, to be congratulated, but just as importantly, Excel, Atmos, Suddenly, they've not ever done that here either. And it's of a huge magnitude. Jerry, the ditch is how wide?
The ditch is going to be opened up at 16-foot width down Pierce Street.
Wow.
And depth?
Depth will go from at 8th Street, we should be about 10 foot deep, or 10 foot depth there, and close to 18 to 20 foot at 5th.
Is it going to have concrete conduit for all these things to go through, or is it just going to be, here's your sewer, here's your electrical, here's your whatever, and then just cover it back up?
No, sir. We have certain specifications that we have to meet regardless. The city sewer lines and city water lines require a certain level of separation between. We have a certain specification as far as the backfill around those lines. The lines that the city's installing will be the newer, higher pressure lines, so that we're currently removing a lot of old clay tile sewer lines, for example, that Jared kind of referenced earlier. Those lines, if we have a piece of heavy equipment drive over them, if they're only at 2 foot in depth, they collapse. And so that's some of the lines that we're replacing. What we have done is allocated spaces within the trench to kind of come back to your question. On one side of the trench will be XL because they require the greatest amount of separation. Everybody involved in this is also planning to lay additional conduits within this trench for future use. These conduits, that's probably the least expensive cost of this whole project, really, is the additional conduits laid in place. The IT department for the city, for their emergency operations centers, they'll have 4 conduits, for example, that will run from here to the EOC and dispatch center, so that we have a double loop backup system feeding that as well. As I referenced earlier, Happy State Bank, we've laid in additional conduits for them, and then we have some future conduits. Currently AT&T will not be participating in the trench because they have fiber optics in Buchanan, but we're looking into the future thinking that should this continue to grow the way that we project it to, we're laying additional conduits for them so that they can buy those lines from us at a later date and utilize it.
And not open the street back up. Well,
How old is the oldest infrastructure that the city will be replacing?
You know, the original dates, some of the stuff that we're taking out there on 10th, crossing over to the new Happy State Bank, is some of the oldest components in this project, and we really don't know what that is. We've found items that were still in use that nobody was aware was still there. That's part of the logistical problem that Jared referenced earlier that we're kind of fighting on. We have exposed a lot of it, but a lot of it's over 60, 70 years old.
The downtown utilities are truly a definition of out of sight, out of mind. A lot of it was laid from the early 20s to the late 20s. The big storm sewers, I think, went in starting in the late 1920s. Storm sewer will be a separate project, obviously, because it's surface and it's great. But short of that, this common trench is going to take care of a lot of it. It's in effect shaped like a giant T. There's shelves within that trench, and that's where everybody gets the piece of real estate that Jerry is assigning to them, and that's how we keep them apart as well. Goal would be to have that done, finished, the street put back in place, and the street open prior to your heavy construction beginning over here to minimize those disruptions.
Jared, I don't know if this is a question for you or for Gary. Once we get past the utility business and we get into the walls of the Jolly construction phase, the role that he would play in terms of kind of the ownership or the ownership guy on one side, what would that be? Can you talk about that a little bit?
Well, I can talk about that a little bit, and Jerry may want to jump in on it as well. We have a partner, a developer. They employ the architect and the engineer. They provide what I would call construction superintendents, the day-to-day, hour-to-hour, minute-by-minute experts there to be sure that what's being built, the testing, all of that's done in accordance with specs. What I envision the city providing to that is an independent eye answerable to this body, not to be there day by day, hour by hour, minute by minute, to observe all the critical components, to be able to give you that third-party look that, yes, this is being built in conformance to the plans.
It is ours at the end of the day.
Because it is ours at the end of the day, and if you want to know that as designed, because Jerry will be involved in this pre-construction. He'll be involved in my mind, back in the design phase. Again, we're not the designer, we're not employing the designer, but as we will be the owners, we sure want to know that what's being put in there is something that we can and will be able to live with long term, and that will be his expertise providing that. Construction, again, you'll be looking at critical components, you'll be looking at the general conformance, not in any way to take the place of Walls to Jolly, responsibility of their professionals, but merely to be that third eye for this group.
Would Jerry have any role in helping to kind of coordinating the permitting process by city departments, or would that be totally separate?
That will be separate, and I think needs to remain that way. We had many discussions on that when we put the lease and development agreement together. Permitting is a separate function that project needs to go through, as any other project would go through. So you will have building inspectors on that job at different points. But it won't be treated more or less than any project that's being built. It is a separation there. Jerry?
Well, to kind of expand on what Jared was referring to, some of the preliminary drawings that we've received from them show that they have an impact on us on 6th Street. For the size of the structure that the hotel will be, we know that the footings and the pylons that are going to be required to support a structure of that size are going to encroach in certain areas. That will impact our utilities, both presently and in the future. Some of those things that we have knowledge of, we can bring to the forefront at the beginning of the project. Some of the issues that we have with our soils. Are they doing the proper soil testing? Are they checking for those type of things that we know are construction issues in our country? We don't know who their contractor is going to be. If it's somebody coming out of the Houston area, have they built in this kind of country? Are they used to the wind loads that we have to deal with? Those type of things. Most of that's dealt with in the engineering plans, but sometimes those engineering plans are to meet bare minimums. And bare minimums, sometimes, for example, our HVAC, when you buy a set of engineered drawings for this area, our area is zoned the same as Dallas. Well, everybody that lives here knows our weather's not like Dallas's weather. We're closer to Denver. But when you look at the zone maps for the engineering of this area, we fall into Dallas zone. That kind of information, if passed on to the engineers up front, say you need to plan on engineering as for a Denver environment, makes a huge difference on just the environmental controls on a structure. So, I kind of see that being the information that we can give them to help them do a better job.
Additional questions? Comments? Jerry, thank you. Look forward to this process.
No problem.
We're going to get hard hat.
What color?
I want that one. I think it has a white.
Yellow.
Pink.
Two of the 7 members have hard hats.
Yeah. I don't know what it is.
Well, can they crank them open far enough that they really fit?
Somewhere there's a picture of them wearing those set hard hats.
where you use sewer system?
No, it was during, that was the airport, when it was still under construction, right?
Okay, gentlemen, anything else that we need to talk about, Eric, under the project status?
I think that's been kind of covered, unless there's any questions for you to try to answer.
Okay, we'll move on. Item number 5 on the agenda is the public comment period. There are citizens here today that would like to make comments on the activities of the local government corporation. Now would be the time for us to hear. So is there anyone here that cares to make a comment? Going once? Going twice? All right. There being none, we'll move to item number 6 on the agenda, which is the closed session item. And we'll take advantage of our opportunity to hold a closed session today to discuss the potential sale or lease of downtown property, together with the opportunity for attorney-client communication per Texas Local Government Code, sections 551, 071, 072, and 087. And it is 12:02.